Okay, probably won't believe this, but your marketing team is constantly sharing broken links. So it all starts with your marketing campaign. You have pages or other assets that you want to share with your audience. So you share them on different platforms. And to do this, you use UTM links. I know you can say, Andrea, my team is already using UTM links, so I'm not learning anything new here. But did you know that it's very easy to break UTM links? And when UTM links don't work, your attribution is broken. So you can't go anymore from the platform, from the assets you share to the marketing campaign, and you lose completely your tracking. This happens because of the flexibility of the UTM links. In the UTM parameters, you can put whatever value you want. And while this is very flexible, it causes problems because actually it's not true that you can put whatever value you want, because some values are recognized by Google Analytics and some values are not. Now, you may know this, but if the people that are actually distributing your links don't know it, like if your marketers don't know it, well, your UTM links are broken. So your marketing campaign is not going to look anything like this. Most likely it's something like this. So you will share your assets multiple times on like Facebook, LinkedIn, you will send multiple tweets, and you will also send a bunch of emails. Now, when all the UTM tracking works correctly, you will be able to pinpoint which post generated the click, from which post the user reached the website. But for this UTM tracking to work, you need one SOP, standard operating procedure. You definitely need a spreadsheet or a third-party tool where you generate and collect all the UTM links you're going to share. And you need a validation tool to make sure that the links you are about to share are formatted in a way that it's recognized by Google Analytics. Otherwise, well, they just won't work. So at the heart of UTM links, there are UTM parameters. So let's see them quickly. The first one is UTM medium, then we have UTM source, then we have UTM campaign. These three parameters are mandatory. You must have all three when you create a UTM link. If you miss one of them, the sources of your traffic may be not attributed correctly. On top of these three parameters, there are other two, UTM content and UTM term. Now, not everyone uses these two parameters, but in my opinion, they are super useful and super important. And if you really want to track where people are coming from and what is performing better, you should use them. But here there is a little bit of a warning. So as today, when I'm shooting this video, it's March 2023, UTM content and UTM term are still not reported in GA4. So if you're using these parameters today, you will not see them in any report. But I'm pretty sure that very soon GA4 will have the reporting capabilities for UTM content and UTM term, because they have always been in Universal Analytics. There is no reason why they shouldn't be in GA4. So if you are not using them, start using them. And if you are using them already, keep using them because they're very, very useful. Now we'll see how. Let's make a practical example. So here you see a UTM link, and this URL contains the page we want to share and the 5 UTM parameters that we need to have in the URL to make the UTM tracking work. I want to draw your attention on the yellow symbols here. This is something technical I want to point out because people always get it wrong. There can be only one question mark in a URL. Only one. So in case you have a URL that already contains a question mark like this, so this is part of the URL you want to share, you cannot add another question mark. And believe me, there are URL builders that they are making this mistake. So you can never have 2 question marks in a URL. In that case, all the URL parameters will be dropped and basically your link has no attribution. Now, the correct way to append parameters to a link like this is with AND, not with a question mark. So you don't put a question mark, you put an AND. Now, with this out of the way, let's break down this link into its components. So you see here you have the 5 URL parameters, and we want to see them now one by one. So the first one that we're going to see is UTM campaign, because that's how marketers should think. They always think in terms of campaigns. And in particular, I want your marketers to ask themselves, why are we promoting this? And the reason is a campaign that is called, in this example, Spring 2023. Okay, that's the reason we want to promote this page as part of this marketing campaign. And so we put it up here and we agree that this is the name of the campaign. Now here is where we meet the first problem with the value of the parameters. Despite knowing that the campaign is Spring 2023, people in your marketing team can come up with different versions of this value and call it in a bunch of different ways. Now, while we know that this is all the same campaign, for Google Analytics, these are all different. This thing, no bueno. And believe me, it can happen that one person uses 4 or 5 different variations of naming for the same campaign. This will not break the UTM link. The UTM link still works, but it will break your attribution, because for Google Analytics, these are all different campaigns. So your data will be fragmented among different campaigns, and this is not what you want. To avoid this from happening, you need to have a standard operating procedure that forces people to agree which is the name of the campaign, and then you must have a person that is responsible for making sure that everybody is using the same name. You see, it's not that easy as just building links, and that's why you also need a spreadsheet, so you can log all the links that are created with the name of the person who created the link, and then you can go and see who made a mistake and decide, do I give more training, do I give a warning, do I fire this person? Entirely up to you. Now, after we agreed about the name of the campaign, we have to agree on which platform we are going to share the assets. So in this example, I took LinkedIn, and this will be the second parameter we deal with. So it goes here. And of course, you can share this on all the platforms you want. But again, once you agreed the name of the platform that you will put in the value of the UTM parameter, that's set in stone. It means that if someone on your team comes up with different values for the UTM parameter, these are not good. Everybody must use exactly the same names. And again, your SOP is the tool that allows you to make sure that everybody is using the same naming conventions. And now it's time to talk about the medium, which is the parameter that causes the most issues. In this case, it's not that the link is giving the wrong attribution. If you get the medium wrong, the link will just not work. Most people don't know that the values you put into UTM medium cannot be arbitrary. There is a list of values you have to use, and if the value is not in this list, the attribution will be dropped entirely. This list is compiled starting from a document by Google that lists all the values you can use in UTM medium to have a proper attribution. You see that all these values, actually, they are grouped like this is paid, this is social, this is email, then you have affiliate or referral, SMS, mobile, and push notifications. Now, I suggest that you stick to one variation for each. Like for paid, for me and my clients, I use PPC or display. So if I know that it's display, I use display. Otherwise, I always use PPC. And don't make mistakes because I pick one. And for social, I always use just social. And for email, I always use email. And then if it's affiliate, I use affiliate. If it's just a referral with no affiliation, I use referral. A mistake I have seen large companies make is to use partner. Partner is not in the list, so the attribution information for links where medium is partner will be dropped entirely. The second step here is to get the match correct, because you see, for example, LinkedIn can be both social and PPC, but it cannot be organic or direct or affiliate. So if you put together the wrong association between the source and the medium, you're going to get nonsense. So again, in your standard operating procedure, you must define a process through which your team decides all the combinations, source and medium, that are allowed in your UTM links. Then after you agree on the values that are allowed, you want to put these values in a spreadsheet, and you want to build it so that they are in a drop down and people don't have to type them. They just pick them from a list. And this will reduce greatly the mistakes that marketers can make when they build the URLs. Okay, they don't have to type, they don't make mistakes. And now that we discussed campaign source and medium, it's time to see UTM content and UTM term. That are my favorite parameters because they allow you to understand really which link brought the visitor to the site and which call to action performs better. But before I talk about them, why don't you do yourself a favor and click the like button, so YouTube will understand that you like this kind of video and it will put more of these videos on your feed. Plus, your like helps me to understand that you are into this stuff and I can make more of this content. Thank you very much for clicking that like icon. Now I'm going to talk about UTM content. And specifically, UTM content answers the question, how can we identify the post that drove the visit? And here you see it's very simple as just numbering the posts and coming up with a convention to identify the single post that you are going to share. It can be post, it can be email, it can be just a date and the number. But again, you must have this defined in your standard operating procedure and everybody must use the same convention. And finally, let's talk about UTM term. So while UTM term was originally built to track the performance of keywords, I like to use it to identify what is the most effective call to action. And how do we do this? All you have to do is to agree with your marketing team on a number of call to actions they are going to use consistently. And you always keep these call to actions even in different campaigns. Example, you can use the buy it now call to action, take action, discount, and you can have different variations of discount, closing soon, last chance, little known fact, life hack, one-time offer. These are all different call to action, different reasons for clicking the button. And if you are consistent in using these call to actions, over a period of time, you can track across multiple campaigns which is the call to action that generates more clicks. This is brilliant. You can use UTM term in combination with UTM content to identify single call to actions inside, for example, one email. So if you have 3 links, for example, in the email, the UTM content is always email 3, but then you have different terms for each one of the links. So let's wrap up this entire thing. I'm gonna give you a bullet point list of points for your SOP. So UTM campaign, we have seen that you use it to keep all the campaign data organized. Then you have UTM source, UTM medium, and UTM term to track cross-campaign performance. And UTM term in combination with UTM content can be used to track individual links in posts or emails and to track which is the call to action that performs better. Now, SOP, you want first to define which are the allowed source and medium pairs. So this has to be done once, and then it's always like that. Remember, you put it in the spreadsheet and in a drop-down list. So marketers can click on a value instead of typing one, and they make less mistakes. Then the second is that you need to define unique campaign names. And there must be a person that is responsible to check that every marketer uses the right names. Again, you want these names to be in the spreadsheet and to be in a drop-down list. Then you need to define the naming convention for UTM content. This also has to be in the spreadsheet and it has to be in a drop-down so people can click it instead of typing it. And then you need to define the call to actions you're going to use throughout all your marketing campaigns. list them down and put them in the spreadsheet in the drop-down list. Finally, you want to keep all the values lowercase because UTM parameters are case sensitive. So whenever you use a different case, you are actually making a different attribution. And you want to avoid the use of symbols except underscore and dash, but I really recommend you don't use even those. And finally, I said it already multiple times, all these values must be in a drop-down list so your marketers can click them and they don't have to type them and they don't make mistakes. Now, if this feels like a huge amount of work and you don't know where to start from, you can get in touch with us at leadsandconversion.com/start so we can have a talk and we can see how I can help you. Now, before I close the video, I promised you a tool. You find the tool at utmvalidator.com. This is a tool I built for me and for my clients to check the URLs. And it's super simple, so I will show you how it works. So you come here with your link and you paste it into the input box. Then you click validate. And voila, you see that all these checks are passed, and that's fine. So for example, if I were to use social with capital S, validate, you see that it raises an error because the medium social with capital S is not recognized by Google Analytics. So this wouldn't be a good link. Now you know because you get an error. You get a reminder of which are the allowed mediums for Google Analytics. And also you get a warning here, inconsistent use of lowercase and capital letters in the UTM parameters. And here you have a long page with explanations that it's a sort of mini standard operating procedure you can just incorporate in your documentation. So you made it to the end of this very long video, and I really hope you got some good nuggets of wisdom out of this. If you want more, all you have to do is just to watch the next video.